Hey everybody, jump on and watch with us. Text your friends if they have questions about conspiracy theories and what's going on in the world. We're going to talk current events and conspiracies. And if you are watching with us, we're coming from the Worldwide Impact Studios. I would do this on my own personal page, but I can't stream directly to my own personal page, so we're doing it from Worldwide Impact. I'm going to do a couple of disclaimers here. We're going live. We're going to talk about current events, conspiracies, thoughts about, you're going to hear things like, deep state, new world order, all that stuff. We'll talk about it in the context of a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview. But I want to state clearly, these are, I'm not going to make statements of fact a lot about this. I'm going to ask questions and give you things to think about, things that I think about. You need to do your own research with all of these things. These are my opinions. They're not the opinions of the church that I am employed by or any of that. Further, for the people that want to criticize the fact that I'm doing this, we do use space at a church, but the equipment belongs to Worldwide Impact Ministry, which is, run by myself. So save your emails that say he's using church equipment to make political videos, blah, blah, blah. I'm not using church equipment to do that, okay? Worldwide Impact, that's a nonprofit organization that me and my wife started, and that me and my wife are the president and vice president of. So don't get angry with me and send a ridiculous email to the church. Again, I'm just giving you my opinions on things that I've researched and I've found, and I have a lot of people ask me questions because, in my leisure time, if I'm talking to friends or whatever, these are, things that pop up and come up, and I'm always looking for information about stuff like this and going down the proverbial rabbit holes, if you will. So I'm going to be sharing those things. I have a lot of people that have asked me to do this, share your thoughts, because a lot of people ask in a passing conversation, okay, what is QAnon or what is, what is the deep state? And I'm oh man, that's a long conversation. So if you have questions about things, you can type them in the comments, and I'll give you my opinions and direct you to questions where you can go do your research and then find it out. So if you or any of your friends know people that, enjoy a good rabbit hole to dive down in looking for information about what's going on in the world, my job is I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I want you to be informed. I think that's necessary in our world. You have a duty to be informed about what's going on. And there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. So share the broadcast. If that doesn't sound interesting to you, you'll hate the whole thing. Just share it and then don't watch. But if it is interesting to you, stick around and we'll talk about some fun stuff. But again, I'm not representing thoughts, views, opinions of the church that I attend, or the Assemblies of God, or Global Ministries Network, or any of the other people that I'm affiliated with in one way or the other, whether directly or indirectly. I'm only giving you my thoughts and opinions, and we'll just read interesting things. So let us know where you're watching from and hit the share button. Let me get on here too. What do we name it? Can you name this?
Current events and conspiracies.
There you go. Call it that. Current events and conspiracies. That's what we'll call it. I'm going to share the broadcast. Current events and conspiracies. Share interesting things. So let me turn my own volume off there. Okay. One of the questions I get asked a whole lot, I'm trying to watch, if it ever feels like that I'm not looking directly into the camera and I'm looking below it, I'm reading comments. We have a TV that you guys can't see that's right here where I can see the comments and all of this stuff. So obviously, you guys know there's a lot going on in the world that just doesn't add up a lot, and it just doesn't make sense. Maybe you've heard or seen things that don't add up, or you heard about conspiracy theorists. First of all, let me tell you this. I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist. I enjoy reading about conspiracies, but I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist. I think it's important for us to, first of all, understand a couple things. What is a conspiracy? Where somebody is conspiring about, did you know this, that most of Americans today, 80% of Americans believe that there was more than one shooter in Daley Plaza when John F. Kennedy was shot in 1963, okay? If that's the case, then over 80% of Americans are conspiracy theorists because they have a theory. They may not know what the theory is or the exact answer, but they believe that somebody conspired to kill the president other than in the story that is told in the Warren report is different. There's many people, over 80% of Americans believe that the Warren report is not accurate and that there was a grander conspiracy to assassinate President Kennedy. I am one of those two, so I guess in that regard I'm a conspiracy theorist, but in general, I wouldn't consider myself that way. I do enjoy running after finding the underlying facts, and one of the things that you can always do in this regard to find out what's happening in the world is follow the money. Follow the money. Always follow the money. As we're starting, somebody tag Rodney Howard-Browne in this, because I'm going to promote his book. Dr. Rodney Howard-Browne and Paul L. Williams have written a book together. This reads like a history book. It's documented. Let's see. Let me see how many pages of documentation. All of this stuff, nothing is posted in this book or written in this book that can't be independently verified as fact. Reads like a history book. It's called The Killing of Uncle Sam. The tagline of this bad boy is right there. It says, follow the money. It goes back and starts right after the Civil War, and goes back and researches the beginnings of the slave trade in Africa, the way the British government was conspiring to buy up land in the diamond trade, and the plot to join with the United States and create a central banking system called the Federal Reserve, which they did, and it tracks the money of what happened to the wealthy bank owners and the families. Google things like the 5 major Federal Reserve families. You'll know the names: Vanderbilts, Rockefellers. Who are the world leaders? Names like George Soros. The last name Rhodes in Africa. Search about him. For chapters 1, 2, and 3 are about that guy. You might remember parts of Central and Southern Africa known as Rhodesia. Okay, that is because there was a man named Rhodes there that was in charge of the diamond trade. Very, very corrupt, evil, murderous man, and it's just a very, very deep hole. Well, how has that affected now, like the world that we live in? And there's so many different, it's crazy to see when you start chasing the money. So I'm going to talk about some of those things. And I want to tell you, first of all, I'm not an authority on this. This is why I've been reluctant to even do this. But I want to challenge you to expand how you think, okay? Understand things that can be documented and proven. Understand that when Donald Trump is standing at a rally and going, "You are fake news," the fake news media, all those corrupt people right there, they're a bunch of liars. Understand that he's not just blowing smoke, okay? The CIA, not necessarily, are there good people that have worked for the CIA? Yes, but at the very roots, at the upper echelons of the origins of the CIA, and it's not a pretty picture. And these things can be documented. You can Google things like the Mockingbird Media. Operation Mockingbird is a operation where the CIA. Think about these things. There's who wrote this? I brought my computer so I can do on-demand research. If you guys ask questions, or I can give you links to things that I think are interesting. Update later. Let's do that. I'm trying to see who wrote this quote. Here we go. A guy named Dan Brown. Here's the quote. Stupid pop-ups. History is always written by the winners. When two cultures clash, the loser is obliterated and the winner writes the history books, books which glorify their own cause and disparage the conquered foe. Napoleon once said, quote, "What is history but a fable agreed upon? Whoever wins the war writes the history." And how true that is. Things that we've known to become true. Let's talk about conspiracy theories that now have been widely accepted as fact. I learned in the history of World War II that when Russia got to Berlin, they found they were the first ones to get to Hitler's underground lair, and in that place, I was told and taught in my history book that Adolf Hitler and his girlfriend, what's her first name? If you know the answer, type it in the comments. Something Brown. Oh, we can Google it. I got a computer right here. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Hitler's. Is it Ava Braun? Yeah. Ava Braun. Ava Braun. I was taught that they committed suicide together while they're, you can watch the History Channel and they do a reenactment where they put on their favorite music and they sit down and they both take cyanide pills and they have the people, their close confidants, the people that are the staff at their home that cook their food and their personal assistants and stuff like that. They drag them up and burn their bodies. And then the Russians show up and then they find the bodies burned and they're like, "Hey, look, here lies Hitler. He was burned. He's, died a cowardly death, blah, 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 blah." It's now, go watch, one of the number one trending shows on Netflix right now is a show called Hunting Hitler. It's a conspiracy series about a man who goes around and is tracking the eyewitness reports that say that Hitler left on an airplane out of Berlin the moment that the Russians and the Americans are converging on there, and he flies out of there. He's seen in Spain and then seen boarding a German submarine. And then the submarine pops up in Argentina, and there's eyewitnesses all over Argentina that say that they've seen Hitler, all of his right-hand people, eyewitnesses. You show them pictures, and they think it's one name, but they're like, "No, that man lives here in Argentina." It's widely accepted now that Hitler did not die in World War II. Not only that, here are the questions that you should be asking. Asking questions like, what is MK Ultra? What is a handler? Who are the handlers in World War II? Interesting questions that you can do. Go down those rabbit holes, okay? Has anybody asked specific questions, or are you guys just listening at this point? Not yet, no questions. If you have questions about this stuff, like type them in the comments, and I'll give you my opinion. I'm not going to give you a statement of facts, okay? I'm just telling you things that I've read and I've found. It's very interesting right now because the world is a very different place. I would encourage you to don't get your news just from Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and the mainstream mockingbird media. Don't do that. Understand this. Go and search and Google, what is the mockingbird media? Go and search who is, what's that guy's name on CNN? Like white hair, nice looking guy, glasses, CNN, like their main guy, Anderson Cooper. What, just Google, what's his real name? Like, who's his mom? His mom was a Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, all linked. Follow the money. Follow the money. They put their people in. How is it that you can go back and you can see the media in attacking whatever it is that they're attacking or criticizing, whether it's Trump, like for years and years, they all have. It's like they all are reading off the same notes, having the same phrases all of the time. The politicians will be saying the same. Criticizing using the same phrases. During this, ridiculous Mueller report that was coming out, and everybody's saying it's like you're listening to the same person. It's ridiculous. What is my opinion on COVID-19 and its origins? I don't know that. I'll get to that, I guess, a little bit. I have my personal theories that I don't have. Again, I'm giving you opinions of things I think could have happened. I won't be shocked if we find out. I think this. I think the truth will come out this time. I think a lot of times it doesn't, and they're always just, they tell us one story. Let's talk about this. Let's try to go from the basics. What is a false flag? A false flag, people get offended sometimes when you say things like false flag, but false flag does not mean that something didn't happen, okay? I personally believe that, my opinion, that Sandy Hook and the atrocities that happened there, I believe that it was a false flag. That does not mean that I think that it didn't happen. I'm not here to tell you that nobody died in that elementary school in, where's it, Connecticut? I'm not saying that. I believe that it's a false flag. I think there's a lot of details surrounding that ordeal that don't add up, and I believe that it was an organized hit job on children for the purpose of driving a narrative to confiscate guns in America. You want to find out something interesting, find out how many guns there are per person in the United States of America. It'll help you understand why nations don't want to come here. It'll help you understand why Japan didn't want to have a war on our mainland, because everybody's armed. Everybody's armed. If you come to Texas, we all have guns. It's not just here, though. It's across the United States. Our Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms, shall not be infringed. Not like, I don't know, I'm not going to get off on that deal, but there's a reason why they want to confiscate the guns, because fighting a battle against a people, look what happened in World War II when they go into the different areas of the Jewish communities all over Germany and Austria and start confiscating and disarming the people. For your own safety, we need to disarm you. You've got to turn in your guns. Well, the moment they do that, as soon as they're disarmed, it's like, okay, now that you're disarmed, load up on these trains and you're going to the incinerators. That's what happened to them. That was their reality. If you could go back in history and ask those questions. So false flag is where I'm going with this. False flag doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It means that somebody is driving the narrative and causing something to happen, trying to drive a separate agenda to create a narrative, and use an awful situation to obtain a different political agenda. False flag. Here, look at this thing over here. Look, there's a movie, I think, called Wag the Dog. Yeah, false flag. Hey, everybody, look over here, look over here. And while you're looking over here, they're running an end around on the agenda. And in the name of, you want to see the greatest false flag event in the history of the world, my opinion, and these are things that some people aren't ready to hear. That's why if you're watching this and you never heard about conspiracies or QAnon or anything like that, this may scare you, but the reality of the world that you know is vastly different than what's really happening. And look it up for yourself, research for yourself. I'm not telling you how to believe, but I'm telling you this. Do you honestly think that the atrocities that happened on September 11th, that our government had no idea that it was coming? There's no way. Follow the money. Follow the money. Just start reading and researching and asking, do this. Start asking the questions about World Trade Center building number 7 and how it fell down. It's not anywhere near. An airliner did not strike that building. But why did that building collapse? And what's directly underneath that building? The Federal Reserve. Look up. If you read this book, you'll see these things. Find out what was due on September 12th. In an international court, the United States have been ordered to pay billions of dollars in a settlement to settle an international dispute, money dispute regarding the Federal Reserve Bank. They were supposed to hand over billions of dollars in gold on September the 12th, and voila, all of the money that was supposed to go and be paid to this other country is we can't pay because the gold is gone because it was directly underneath Building 7. How did Building 7 fall? Look at it. Watch the videos. It looks like a controlled demolition. Look at the same thing on the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers that fell. It looks like a controlled demolition. Look at it. False flags. It doesn't mean it didn't actually happen. I believe that lots of people died, but unfortunately, the evidence seems to point to the fact that our government knew about it, and not only maybe knew about it, but there's a good chance they were in on it. The world's not necessarily ready to hear that, but we need to be ready. You need to start looking for these things yourself. So let's start talking about this. If you have heard of QAnon before, let me know in the comments, send me a raising your hand emoji, or, I have, how many of you follow Q, or how many of you have heard it? So just type that in the comments. I've heard of it, I follow it, whatever. And we'll talk about that. Thanks for tagging Dr. Rodney in this. He's a good man, one of the generals of our generation. I like him because he doesn't back down. He's a principled man that even in the midst of people not having opinions that aren't even popular, even in Christian circles, he doesn't back down. I like that. That's somebody that I can get with, that stands and doesn't give a rip about what the opinions of man, but he's principled, stands on the Word of God. I like it. And I wrote an interesting book. I, again, want you to get this. It'll help you understand the origins of it. This book will help you. First of all, I don't know that Dr. Rodney follows Q. I've tried to tell him to follow it, in Messenger or whatever. I'm sure he's heard of it, and he doesn't have an opinion on it one way or the other. I'm not here to tell you that Q is real or not. I'm just giving you only things that I can say that seem to be outside the realm of just coincidence. But so anyway, it'll help you to understand the things that Q talks about, because Dr. Rodney and Paul L. Williams have documented and have clear documented proof of why and how the federal bank was formed, when it was formed, and the agenda behind it. So get that book. It'll help you. You can buy it on Amazon. You can also buy the audiobook. If you don't like reading, if you're looking at that and going, man, that's a thick book, I don't want to read that. I was the same way. I listened to it. I'm an auditory learner. I listened to the whole thing and could probably quote a lot of it back to you. I just learned better that way. But I wanted to have one in my hand too. So let's talk about QAnon, what it is not. What time did we start? 4:19, so I've been going, what, 25 minutes or so already? It's amazing how long I can just like talk about information. Okay, let's talk about QAnon. Y'all ready for this rabbit hole? In October of 2017, somebody posted on an anonymous chat board, okay? For those of you not super familiar with the interwebs, you know what, let's do this. Let's play this video. I wanna encourage you, if you don't have Twitter, get a Twitter account. There's people that you can follow on Twitter. I'll give you some of the names of people that you can follow on Twitter that I've followed for a long time that aren't like the wackos, just like presenting like, you know, any whim of information, but actually do research and go, hey, this can be documented, and it seems that this is like actually factual, okay? Ben Shapiro is one of those people. He's conservative. He is I believe, he's an Orthodox Jew, but he's not like necessarily against like, you know, Christians. He's like all for religious freedom. Probably the most intelligent person overall in the United States at the moment. Has the largest growing podcast in America. He'll go live on Facebook Live and have 40,000 people watching. And I'm like, okay, that's insane, because I know how difficult it is to build an audience. We were happy today, we got over 40. He's like, you know, 40,000. So, but get a Twitter account, follow Ben Shapiro, the Daily, I think he's the chief editor of the Daily Caller. Can you verify that for me? You don't have to do that. Let me look, I think that's right. Daily Wire, not the Daily Caller, Daily Wire. He's the chief editor of that, Ben Shapiro. He's also a Fox News contributor. He's a guy you can trust. He's intelligent. He's not going to give you things that are, you know, can't be proven. He's going to state things like, you know, that are facts. Also, Praying Medic on Twitter. He's also written books. Spirit-filled Christian man, flows in the gifts of the Spirit. And somebody tag Praying Medic in here. I don't know if I can do that or not. I'll message him and tell him if he wants to watch or whatever. I'm going to show you a video that he made about QAnon that gives like the origins of it, and he'll do it a lot more concise than I have. This video is 4.5 minutes long. I encourage you to check it out, and then we'll talk about what it is. Ready, go.
Hi there, my name is Dave, but you may know me by my pen name, Praying Medic. You may have heard a little bit about this mysterious person on the internet called Q, or QAnon. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we know about Q and hopefully dispel some misinformation. Back in October of 2017, an anonymous person began posting on the internet message board called 4chan. The interesting thing about posting on 4chan and 8chan is that you're given a unique alphanumeric ID, but it keeps you anonymous. You're not given a name or anything. So when you post on those boards, no one really knows who you are. From time to time, people will go on the boards and they'll claim to be government insiders inside the FBI, Department of Justice, etc. Well, these people typically last for a couple of days. They post information that they say is insider information. Sometimes they'll predict that someone's going to be arrested, and then they're never heard from again. Well, in October of 2017, a person showed up on 4chan and they introduced themselves as a Q clearance patriot. Now, backstory on Q clearance. It is a very high level security clearance. It's issued by the Department of Energy. Q has never claimed to work for the Department of Energy. They just introduced themselves as a Q clearance patriot. So this person has been posting on 4chan. They posted there for about a month or two. And because there were a lot of trolls and a lot of problems, they eventually ended up moving over to 8chan. The board administrators set up a specific board just for Q to post on 8chan. So Q has posted on several different boards over the length of time, but Q has also given some pretty convincing evidence that Q is the same person posting today that was posting back in October of last year. Unlike a lot of people who show up on 4chan and 8chan and claim to be government insiders, but they're gone after a few days, Q has been posting consistently for 8 months, and Q seems to read almost all of the responses to the things that he posts. Q often replies to the anons on the board. Sometimes Q will ask questions for further research. And speaking of research, part of Q's mission is to ask us to do research on a variety of different subjects. You don't have to be a researcher to follow Q. There are plenty of people that are doing research. I happen to be one of them. My role in the Q movement is I take screenshots of the things that Q posts on 8chan. I will take the images, I'll post them on Twitter. I will include links, some text, some comments and observations that I made. I try to make connections of different things that Q posts. I often will include older posts because Q will often tell us, reread previous drops on the certain subject. So sometimes I'll go back and look at older posts that Q has put out, tie them into newer ones, put in news articles, and then give kind of a summary of what I've found on a particular video. Now, I should say this. Some of the people who follow Q would consider themselves to be conspiracy theorists. I do not consider myself to be a conspiracy theorist. I consider myself to be a Q researcher. I don't have anything against people who like to follow conspiracies. That's their thing. It's not my thing. I tend to stick pretty closely to the subjects that Q posts on, and I tend to avoid unnecessary rabbit trails. A common question people ask me is, who is Q? My short answer is, I don't know. No one really knows who Q is, and by the way, it does seem as though Q is a team of people rather than an individual. Q will sometimes write in terms of we and us as the team. Q will sometimes sign a post Q+. I've come to understand that that means Q and the team. Q seems to be a small group of people that are very close to the president on a daily basis. They have posted photos and interesting information that would be difficult to get a hold of if you weren't very, very close to the president on a daily basis. That is going to conclude this first video in my series on Q. If you're interested in knowing how to find Q posts, if you'd like to know a little bit about some of the proofs that Q has put out there, please check out some of my other videos in this series. Thank you for joining me. This is Praying Medic. I'll catch you on the next broadcast.
Okay, so that's a short introduction to what Q is, how it started. That video was made over a year ago when Q had only been posting for like 8 months. Q's now been posting since October of 17, so over 2 years, like coming up on 2.5 years. And Q has still not been proven to be false, and nobody will ask the president the question, who is Q or is QAnon real? Q claims to have insider information with the Trump administration. Here's the basic claim of QAnon, is that there is a behind-the-scenes operation that's been in the works for many years to root out the deep state and a group of people that do not like America or any other country in America, but want to centralize the currencies and literally the New World Order, the NWO, to create one world government, which is what the Bible says is going to be happening anyway. This is like Satan's agenda from the very beginning. But the Q suggests that there's a group of military people that have been working to figure out a way to eradicate the deep state and people that would undermine true American values and end the United States of America as we know it. They have suggested as well that Donald Trump was chosen as the person that was the only person that they could get to possibly beat the algorithms of the voting machines that are created and owned by George Soros and the deep state, so that, and it's not about a political party. So if you're watching and you're like, you know, you consider yourself Democrat or you consider yourself Republican, listen, it's two heads of the same snake. Republicans and Democrats alike, when the election came down to Barack Obama or John McCain, it's two heads of the same snake. Okay, either one of them were part of the same deep state corruption as the other. It wouldn't have mattered who won. When Bill Clinton is going out of office in 2000, and George Bush, George W., and Al Gore are going head to head in that election, it wouldn't have mattered who won. It wouldn't have mattered. It's two heads of the same snake. So QAnon's been posting. They don't post a lot of statements of fact. It's usually questions that cause people to go to think for themselves. Like Praying Medic was saying just then, is think for yourself. Do your research. Here's the thing. I don't have time to go and research all of this, but I've been able to find people over the last couple of years that I trust, that are rational. Okay, there's people out there that you'll see that have like, okay, so there's like the main Q movement, and then there's like sub movements of the Q movement. So there's like a group of people, I'll get into this one in just a minute, but there's people that believe different things and out there, and there's even some infighting in the Q movement of people that think, oh, you shouldn't be going after this conspiracy, let's just stay on track with this. And I think that's good. But the people that I follow are, there's a guy on Twitter, his Twitter name is Joe M, but his Twitter handle is @StormIsUponUs. That's one of the things that Q has stated over and over. The storm is upon us. The storm is upon us. It's interesting that right after Q started posting in the White House, Trump is there with a bunch of his staffers, and he looks at everybody and he goes, "Look at this! Isn't this a great picture?" It's a picture of him and a bunch of military officials and staff, and he says, "Look at this! It's kind of like the calm before the storm." And they said, "What storm are you talking about?" He goes, "You'll find out. You'll find out soon." And Q always talks about the storm is upon us. Things like that. There's certain phrases that Q always says. Somebody posted up there, Megan Price, my cousin. I showed her the Q rabbit hole, and like we've lost her for like a year now. But she put on there WWG1 WGA. If you've ever seen that, it stands for Where We Go One, We Go All. Kind of a motto from Q. It referenced a movie called White Squall. It's a great movie. I encourage you to watch it. But the entire thing was about the captain of this sailing team that is preparing young men to be prepared for a storm, and then they get caught in the middle of a storm, and they realize that they were prepared for it because of the training, because of their leader, and they came through the storm. There were some things lost, but they stuck together, and their motto was, "Where we go one, we go all." Interesting movie. There's so much information. There's no way I can give you a comprehensive explanation of this. Different things that Q talks about, though. First of all, let's talk about Q proofs. How can we know that this thing is even real, or if it's just like somebody living in fantasy land? The preponderance of the evidence seems to be outside the realm of coincidence. When I say that, one of the things that Q does is Q will post right before the president tweets. A lot, okay? Over the last 2.5 years, Q has posted about 3,800 times, 38 different messages. You can find this information on qmap.pub. Qmap, can somebody type that in the comments? qmap.pub, if you want to follow actual Q posts. That website is a great place to do Q research. You can find out about stuff. I'd encourage you to read some of those posts and go down the rabbit hole. Go and it talks about conspiracies about like who died when what was the name, the Hindenburg, the big German blimp like burned up? Who got killed during that? Who was actually on the Titanic when it went down? Who owned the Titanic? Who owned the insurance policy on the boat, the Titanic? Who was supposed to be on the boat that didn't get on it? Things like that. That talk about what happened in Europe the week before Titanic left and was sailing back to New York. The answer is there was the world bankers. The world bankers were called together for a meeting in Europe to decide to be a part of a world banking system called the Federal Reserve. Everybody decided to do that except a couple. Everybody tried to decided to be a part of that except for a couple of those bankers, and it happened to be that those two bankers were on the Titanic when it went down. So when you watch the movie and you see the rich guy that's trying to like save his own family, the suggestion from Q is that it might possibly have been just the opposite. Whoever wins the battle writes the history books. And what better way to control the narrative to let Hollywood make a movie and to show you as the evil rich guy? Interesting. It's the Astoria family that went down with the ship, by the way. Who was supposed to be on the boat? Who had tickets that backed out? All of the world bankers were supposed to be on that boat. The Rockefellers, J.P. Morgan, Chase family. Check them out. The Federal Reserve. And yes, Susan says, and then the Federal Reserve was born. It was. And then there was a man that came along and swore that he would end the Federal Reserve and he would end the Vietnam War. And they shot him like a dog in broad daylight in Dallas, Texas, in Daley Plaza. His name was John F. Kennedy. He swore that he would dismantle and scatter. He would scatter the CIA to the four winds. They blew his head off. Who was it that organized it? Who was the head of the CIA at that time? Who's the director of the CIA the time that the CIA puts the hit on JFK? Interesting. You do the research. So, things like that. Here's the thing that can help me know that Q had to be authentic, outside the realm of possibility. Q posts on average about 5 times a day. Sometimes he's gone silent for like 60 days. Sometimes he posts like 25 things in one day. Sometimes nothing at all. But on average about 5 times a day. So here's what I challenge you to do. The president tweets about 20 times a day on average since he's been president. Q will post within a 1 minute difference, or they use the term delta, a 1 minute delta, right before the president does. First of all, he claims to have insider information and be like behind the scenes in the Trump administration. Well, do this tomorrow. Try tweeting within 1 minute before the president. It doesn't matter if you do it after, because anybody can sit there and wait till the president tweets and then immediately tweet something. That would be easy. But do this. Try to tweet something within 60 seconds before Donald Trump posts something on Twitter. See if you can do it. It's next to impossible. It's next to impossible. Not only has Q done that, Q has done that multiple times in a day, and has done that, I believe at this point, has done that close to 100 times in 2 years. It's crazy. I think that's one of the biggest Q proofs that he's got to have some type of insider information somehow. The other thing, the one that sold me, because I just watched for a little while and would read up on it, and I was like, I don't know about that. I don't want to look like the weirdo that believes in something that's just crazy. Obviously, if you know me now, like I'm all in. My license plate says QAnon. The thing that sold me is that first of all, Q doesn't say the name John McCain. They refer to him as no name because of the atrocities that he committed with children, and because of the treason that he committed by delivering. And this part's documented. There's pictures, like widely found on the internet, of John McCain with leaders of ISIS in Syria. The guy that just got blown to pieces, al-Baghdadi. There's pictures of John McCain with al-Baghdadi. Now, we're supposed to be in the middle of a war with ISIS, and then in the middle of that, why is John McCain seen taking group pictures with like leaders of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the Taliban? Well, on his little trip, if you've ever heard of the Uranium One deal, the Uranium One, while Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, the United States sold uranium to Russia. But it is widely believed and documented that over a third of that uranium got delivered to Syria, okay? In an effort to frame Russia when a bomb gets made with the uranium that was sold to Russia, to frame Russia as the originator of an atomic bomb that was used to attack somebody somewhere, that ushers us into World War III. Because what is war? War is a racket. You want to make some money? Create a war somewhere. And then own all of the business that builds all of the equipment and feeds all of the people, like Halliburton. Who was the CEO of Halliburton before they were the vice president of the United States? Go ask yourself these questions. Follow the money. Follow the money. The one that got me, though, is that John McCain is not even known to be sick at the time. And 30 days before John McCain's death, to the minute, Q posts in September, I believe, of 2018, Q posts, no name returning to the media. Anybody who follows Q understood John McCain is no name. Either that or they'd say John M. He started out calling him John M., and then they would refer to him as no name. Q posts and says, no name returning to the news, question mark, and then puts in brackets 30. Brackets in Q posts tend to mean what we call a kill box. It means that it identifies someone as a target of Q. Generally identifies them as, you'll see Q refer to people as black hats or white hats. Refers to clowns as people that are in the CIA, that are like dirty cops, also dirty people in the FBI, also known as clowns in Q post. But 30 days after that post, to the minute, the New York Times releases an article identifying the time of John McCain's, the exact time of John McCain's death, and it's exactly 30 days to the minute that Q had posted. So how could Q have known that other than the narrative that he had, or the team who had ever been posting that from the very beginning, suggesting that they tied a link to Lindsey Graham, and go back and look this up. Get on YouTube and search Lindsey Graham asking questions to Brett Kavanaugh during the confirmation hearing, and ask him. He said Justice Kavanaugh, he was Mr. Kavanaugh probably at that point. Mr. Kavanaugh, is it true that during a time of war that there's another set of laws that govern crimes against the United States during a time of war? And he says yes. Kavanaugh cites the Supreme Court ruling that identified that anybody who commits treason in the time of wartime can be isn't tried in a public court, but can be tried under military law in a military tribunal. Why would he be asking those things? right about the time that John McCain is disappearing from the face of the earth? Why was it then that John McCain had hurt his leg, but the boot kept switching from left to right? Did he have a tracking device? Those things that we are all wondering. But he predicted the death of John McCain within 30 days, and I was like, there's no way that that's coincidence to the minute. How could you have known that what the exact time that he was going to be executed is what many of us believe, and tried for treason for selling the United States uranium to Syria and delivering it there, and paid the ultimate price for it, and given a deal to be able to plead guilty and have an honorable funeral as well. It's a deep hole. I encourage you to check it out. I'm not going to tell you how to think about it. I'm not going to tell you how to think about it. People are asking, what is Q saying today? I don't think Q has posted anything that I've seen yet today. They were posting things yesterday. Somebody asked me earlier, what do I think that's happening with the coronavirus? I would encourage you to Google what is adrenochrome. Who are the Hollywood elites? Let's talk about this. Why is it? Google this. How many elite Hollywood or government officials worldwide are getting coronavirus? Look at how many Hollywood people, celebrities are getting coronavirus. Yeah, look who got it this morning. I woke up today on my phone. I have a news alert that Prince Charles, like the godfather of England. How is that possible? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Look at, it's the weirdest things, the strangest things that are happening. Random posts by Madonna during quarantine, during like this time where everybody's like self-quarantining. Weird posts by Ellen, upside down, laying on her couch, like shooting videos and sending pictures of like the way her leg is positioned, like satanic, ritualistic, upside down, like hangman's, like with her legs crossed, like the exact position. It's the weirdest things. Tom Hanks, Justin Trudeau, all of these elite people, I'm telling you, they're on the run, in my opinion. Just check it out. That's all I would say, is begin to look, think for yourself. I'm not going to tell you how to think or what to think. I'm saying look into it. And get some information. Tomorrow I'll play a video from Storm is Upon Us. We'll do a series. We'll play all the videos from Storm is Upon Us that just describe what's going on. With that, we've got about 26 people on here. I'll end it with this, okay? We know this, the QAnon movement, whoever Q is, I don't know. I have theories of who I hope it is, but I don't know. The Q movement is inspired by the mission that John F. Kennedy started out to do, to dismantle the Federal Reserve and end the corrupt CIA. One of the things I was going to talk about earlier is the Patriot Act is false flag. Patriot Act. We surrender freedoms because we've got to catch all of these, Islamic terrorists, and so we surrender all these freedoms for the Patriot Act, which means that they can, have access to all this information about us in the name of national security, and we ended up, we give permission. Not that we gave permission, but the government is granted permission. All they have to do is like target you as associated somehow as a terrorist, and then they can know everything that they want to about you. Research what a FISA court is and what FISA can actually do and what kind of information that they can find out about you. The answer is everything. You get a FISA warrant against you. This is what happened to Carter Page. Start doing the research on it. And you'll see they can have everything. They can listen to him when he's talking. They can have access to every phone call he's ever made. They can hear it. They can see every text message he's ever sent, anywhere he goes. If he calls, if Carter Page calls his mother, they can now surveil his mother. They can surveil his mother. They can see all of her text messages. They can see every person. They can listen in on her conversations. They can wiretap her and listen to everything. If Carter Page calls an old friend from high school, they can now surveil that old friend from high school. They can go 2 steps away. Okay? So if I'm being surveilled and I call, let's see, who did I talk to yesterday or text? I hate talking on the phone. I call my insurance company. I talk to the insurance person, and the insurance person calls their best friend. The government now has the right to surveil, if they have a FISA warrant on me, the friend of the Allstate agent that I talk to that has no idea about any of this other stuff, but they can surveil everyone around you because of a FISA warrant. It's crazy. All because of the Patriot Act. Surrendering freedom. So, the whole thing is inspired by John F. Kennedy Sr. at the beginning. Q posted early on that the start of the entire movement was 1999, and it shows a picture of Donald Trump with JFK Jr., who his mission, John F. Kennedy Jr., his mission in life was to expose the people that murdered his father in broad daylight. And expose them. That was his mission in life. I believe that he was assassinated or attempted. It was either an attempted assassination or an actual assassination. There are many people. When they posted that picture, there were people that began to wonder. The real conspiracy theorists started coming out and began to wonder: is John F. Kennedy Jr. is he still alive? And it said. A picture of Donald Trump and JFK Jr. at a Yankees game sitting together, and they were very good friends. And it says, JFK Jr., POTUS, good friends or something like that, the start. And so many people believe that, that it was inspired by JFK Jr. as well. After that, there's this guy that starts popping up at Trump rallies that looks similar to John F. Kennedy Jr. His name was Vincent Fusca. And then there was this big frenzy about JFK Jr. still alive, and like the whole Q-verse just like went crazy on all of the chat boards about that. And then Q came out in December of 18, I believe, December of 2018, and said, somebody asked, a lot of times Q will do like a Q&A, and people can go on the chat boards in real time. Q's like answering questions. And somebody asked, is JFK Jr. alive? Q said no. So it kind of like ended that whole thing, but at the same time, Q also says sometimes that disinformation is necessary. So who knows? Who knows? First of all, I'll say this. Q has never stated that JFK Jr. is alive or that he is Q. There's a lot of interesting things that go along with that. I think it would be a wonderful thing if JFK Jr. was still alive. I'm not here telling you that I even think that. I don't know. It would make a really great movie, is all I'm saying. Either way, it's going to be a really great movie. The history books are being written, even with this coronavirus. Somebody asked earlier, what's my opinion on coronavirus? I think it's interesting that the company that, Google this, find out this information. Look at how many CEOs have resigned in the last like 3 or 4 months. It's insane, just since coronavirus started. Look at how many CEOs of companies have stepped down. It's insane. Bill Gates steps down from a company that he's overseen. Why does Bill Gates own the patent on COVID-19? Isn't that kind of strange? Isn't it strange that he, in 2009, was working with Obama on doing like simulations of what would happen if mass pandemics would hit hit the earth. Research about why he's got the patent, why he just stepped down from the company that's supposedly working on creating and about to release and has the access to that vaccine. I'll tell you this. Guess who will not be taking a vaccine? Over my dead body will I be taking a vaccine that Bill Gates made. That's this guy. I won't be taking it. I believe this. I think they had the plans. Go and do the research during the Obama administration. Go research which FEMA camps were built and made, and why they have giant barbed wire fences around them. They said, well, we're just trying to keep the bad people out. Why is the barbed wire like slanted in? That looks like it's trying to keep people into the FEMA camps. Why were there so many body bags and plastic caskets made and being stored for such a time as this right here, when they would have loved to take out about a third or 2/3 of the United States population with a pandemic, and then randomly go, hey, you're going to have this vaccine, and if you don't get it, you can't do commerce. If you don't get the vaccine, you can't live. You're going to be taken away and put in prison if you don't take the vaccine. What does that sound like? Sounds a lot like the mark of the beast, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I think that's how they'll try to usher it in. I believe firmly I won't be here at that time. How long have I been going? About an hour? Yeah. Good grief. I could talk, guys, it's a deep hole. We've got a pretty good audience with it. Maybe we'll do it again. I'll try to be more organized with it and maybe show you graphics about Q stuff. But we'll talk about it. We can talk about it more. I'll say this. I'm not here saying and proclaiming that JFK Jr. faked his death and is here. I think that would make a great story. There's a lot of evidence that points to some really weird things about the death of JFK Jr. I'm even willing to share with you videos that talk about like the things that don't add up about his death and while he was flying and all of that. And I will point you, if you want a fun deep hole, the tail number on the aircraft that he was flying that night was in something 529. Megan, what was it? You know this answer. What was the tail number on that aircraft? Here's the crazy thing, that there's an aircraft that flies once or twice a day that just makes random patterns in the sky, and you can track it like on the FAA like website. You can see like the track of like where this aircraft went. It's got the same tail number, and it's the same type of aircraft. Really interesting. Really interesting. And a friend of JFK Jr.'s, when he was still alive, owns that aircraft now. It's really fascinating. So Megan says, who do you hope it is? I hope it's JFK Jr., but I'm not saying it is. Q has stated that it's not, so I'm not going to be like pushing propaganda. What's that?
Is it N9253N?
Say it again.
N9253N?
No, it's 529, N529 something. I think there's a K in it. But anyway, we can talk about all of this stuff at a greater time. I just encourage you, though, get on Twitter, follow people there's some wackos out there. I'll give you a list of people that seem to be pretty balanced and rational and not like chasing after like fantasy land. They only post like documented things. I'll tell you this, an Oxford study, I'll end it with this. There's an Oxford study that came out yesterday. I encourage you to Google this. Oxford University came out with a study, and they're finding that they believe that over half of the population of the UK has already been exposed to the coronavirus. And that's wonderful news, because if that's the truth, that means that herd immunity is working and is happening, and that the death numbers, what do they call that? The death rate of this virus is drastically lower than what once was thought. Okay, and then here you go, Katie. This is what you've been asking. What's my theory on coronavirus? My theory on coronavirus is that it was originated, that it's a man-made ordeal, and that it's been planned for decades to be in 2020, that they would take out mass quantities of the population in depopulating the earth with a mass pandemic. I believe they did test runs on this with H1N1, SARS, bird flu, just to see how the world would respond. And this was to be the big daddy. And I believe that the information got leaked. I believe that Donald Trump found out about it. I believe that he was working with China. I think that disinformation is necessary. And I believe that he was working with China to make sure that the cure was already ready, and that they were using this time to go in and take down people that were guilty of this. In the same lab that was working on and exposed people to COVID-19 is also the same place that is believed and documented where adrenochrome is created. That's the drug of the elites. It's made with blood, real blood of children. This is gross. If you're not ready for it, you can just turn me off. But people don't want to hear that the Hollywood elites worship Satan, make sacrifices to Molech. Go search what was on Anthony Weiner's laptop and what did the NYPD, people that saw the videos that were on that video that will implicate Huma Abedin and Hillary Clinton. Go watch and see what they have to say about the videos that were found on that laptop that made grown men cry, leave the room, and vomit when they saw the atrocities that were happening. Go do the research. I'm telling you, our country is in civil war right now between the CIA, the deep state, and the National Security Agency. Seth Rich, patriot. WikiLeaks, patriots. Good people. Good people. And I believe that this thing will be gone just as quick as it was here. And we knew the cure before. That's the other Q proof I'll talk about maybe tomorrow, is that 2 years ago, Q posted something that said, "Thank you, China, CZ." CZ happens to be the same abbreviation for the drug that they're finding beats the coronavirus. There's a doctor in New York City that's tried it on 300 patients. Not one of them has died, nor it immediately starts reducing the symptoms, and after 5 days, it's gone. Abbreviation CZ, Q post 2 years ago. Thanks, China. XI, which is the president, and then CZ happens to be the deal. Homework for tonight, go check out and research, what does Covfefe mean? Let me help you. Donald Trump's not the idiot that you thought he was when it comes to tweeting and misspelling things. It's all intentional, and it generally lines up with the Q post. So check it out. Look at timestamps on Trump's tweets, line them up, go to qmap.pub, and then tune in, and we'll go down the rabbit hole more. And share the broadcast. There's other people that have no idea what this is, and they need a red pill. I'd love to serve them one. Red pill is when you find out what Q is and realize that the world is not like what you thought it was. That's what it means to be red pill. Did you kill me?
No, go.
You turned me off?
No, go.
You cut it off? What'd you do?
It's still going. You're live.
Okay, we're still on. I'm done. I could go on all night about this, but we've got to go do worship practice. Hey, we're doing worship online at Spring First, on the Spring First page in about an hour and a half. If you want to come to church, we'll be open. We won't be turning you away. Oh, you did fade me out. I just saw it.
My mouse.
All right. Hey, click over. Megan says run Forest. Google Ellen DeGeneres and run Forest, and you'll find out what that means. All right. Love you guys. Covfefe, F-E-F-E, synthetic adrenochrome. Susan already knows. Susan, yes, you're my favorite. Covfefe, COVID-19, Fefe, synthetic adrenochrome. They're going down, guys. They're going down. We'll see you next time.